We are so intellectual, but that's not why we're discussing this. We're discussing this because we're interested in putting it into practice. We're discussing this because we are interested in becoming the living word, in embodying the truth, just as the principles do. Okay? We're interested in self-mastery. We're interested in expansion and evolution. Yes or no? I know I'm talking to the right people because you're here, right? And so that's the first thing. The second thing is there is correspondence between all the planes, life and being, all the planes of manifestation. So let's look at the definition of correspondence. Listen, I may know what a word means, but there's always a deeper meaning. So I'm never going to be like, oh yeah, I know what that means. I'm going to look it up. Because the more I research and look up, the deeper the truth goes, right? And I don't know if any of you experience that, but I definitely do. So I don't take words for granted. I love words. I love to use words. I love to read words. I love to write words. I love to understand them. I love to look them up. I love to learn more, okay? So correspondence. What does correspondence mean? Okay, let's look up the definition. There's a correspondence, it says. Correspondence, similarity or agreement, a match, a direct link, or striking similarity between facts, ideas, or things. Okay, so there's a direct link. Correspondence, code, it's a link, right? So now let's go back and read this. The great second Hermetic principle embodies the truth that there is harmony, agreement, and correspondence, a link between the several planes of manifestation, life, and being. There's a link, okay? This truth is a truth because all that is included in the universe emanates from the same source, and the same laws, principles, and characteristics apply to each unit or combination of units of activity, as each manifests its own phenomena upon its own plane. Everything is interwoven, in other words. Nothing is separate, everything is linked. For the purpose of convenience of thought and study, the Hermetic philosophy considers that the universe may be divided into three great classes of phenomena. All right. So this is such a good teaching resource. Okay. So it says that the universe, for the intents and purposes of this teaching, the universe may be divided into three great classes of phenomena. And they are, number one, the great physical plane. Number two, the mental plane. Number three, the spiritual plane. Okay, and it's saying some comments in this live were filtered. So we have this universe, for the intents and purposes of this teaching, being divided into three great planes. The great physical plane, the great mental plane, the great spiritual plane. These divisions are more or less artificial and arbitrary, for the truth is that all of the three divisions are but ascending degrees of the scale of life, the lowest point of which is undifferentiated matter, and the highest point is that of spirit. So, in other words, we have these three great planes as classification for teaching purposes, because really they're not separate. Everything is interwoven and it's on a scale of different degrees. The undifferentiated matter is the lower degree and the highest point is spirit. I hope that's making sense. And moreover, the different planes shade into one another. There's no separate categories. Okay, there's no First, this is the mental plane only. This is the physical plane only. This is the spiritual plane only. No, they shade into one another. They're like a continuum. Okay, Heat-up. How's my connection going, y'all? Because it just told me that mine is unstable. So here we're understanding balance. We're understanding this universe that we live in, and we're understanding principles for self-mastery. Okay. These divisions are but ascending degrees of the great scale of life. Okay, good. So there's one scale. There's one scale of life, and there are ascending degrees. We have spirit, which is at the higher point of the scale, and then we have matter at the other end. And these shade into one another. Very similar to, remember I was explaining to you the different sheaths or koshas according to yoga, that they're not separate parts of you. They actually shade into one another, right? And so we ascend through the sheaths, and we also ascend, hey Kim, we also ascend through these planes as well. And so let's continue. The different planes shade into each other so that no hard and fast division may be made between the higher phenomena of the physical and the lower of the mental, or between the higher of the mental and the lower of the physical. In short, the three great planes may be regarded as three great groups of degrees of life manifestation. Greetings 64. While the purposes of this little book do not allow us to enter into an extended discussion of or explanation of the subject of these different planes, still we think it well to give a general description of the same at this point. At the beginning, we may as well consider the question so often asked by the neophyte, who desires to be informed regarding the meaning of the word plane, which term has been freely used and very poorly explained in many recent works upon the subject of occultism. The question is generally about as follows: is a plane a place having dimensions, or is it merely a condition or a state? And we answer, no, not a place, nor ordinary dimension of space, and yet more than a state of condition, or condition, sorry. It may be considered as a state or condition, and yet the state or condition is a degree of dimension in the scale subject to measurement. We're trying to lay out what we mean by plane. When we talk about the spiritual plane, the mental plane, and the physical plane, these are not places. They also are not merely states of being. There's states of being, and there's a dimension aspect to it, is what it's saying. It may be considered as a state or condition, and yet the state or condition is a degree of dimension. So when we introduce the three great planes, we see what we mean by a plane. Okay, if that's making sense, type yes. Somewhat paradoxical, it is not, but let us examine the matter. A dimension, you know, is a measure in a straight line relating to measure. The ordinary dimensions of space are length, breadth, and height, or perhaps length, breadth, height, thickness, or circumference. Now we're examining dimension. But there is another dimension of created things, or measure in a straight line, known to spiritualists and to scientists as well, although the latter have not as yet applied the term dimension to it. And this new dimension, which by way is the much speculated about fourth dimension, is the standard used in determining the degrees or planes. The fourth dimension may be called the dimension of vibration. It is a fact well known to modern science as well to Hermetists who have embodied the truth in their third Hermetic principle that everything is in motion, everything vibrates, nothing is at rest. From the highest manifestation to the lowest, everything and all things vibrate. Not only do they vibrate at different rates of motion, but as in different directions and in a different manner. The degrees of the rate of vibrations constitute the degrees of measurement on the scale of vibration. In other words, the degrees of the fourth dimension. So let's read that again. The rate of the vibration, okay? So there's a vibration, which is fluctuations in energy. Then there's the frequency, which is how high and low the vibrations travel. And then there's the rate, how close are the oscillations, okay? So it's saying the degrees of the rate of vibration constitute the degrees of measurement on the scale of vibration. In other words, the degrees of the fourth dimension is about the degrees and the rate of vibration. And these degrees form what spiritualists call planes. So all of that was setting up what we mean by planes. When we talk about planes, we're talking about vibration and rate of vibration. We're talking about the dimension aspect, the fourth dimension, okay? It's setting all of this up so that the heavier teaching can come on top of it. I hope that makes sense. So it says that this universe is divided into three great planes: the physical, the spiritual, and the mental. These are not separate. These are on a scale. When you think about a thermometer, okay, there's 0 degrees on one end and maybe 100 something on the other end, right? And then there are tick marks. And so there are degrees on that same scale. The scale here is life. The planes are the different dimensions or the measurements on the thermometer, if you will. Okay, and for right now, they're saying that we're talking about the fourth dimension, and the fourth dimension is the dimension of vibration. And the dimension is measured by rate of vibration, okay? The higher the degree of rate of vibration, the higher the plane. And the higher the manifestation of life occupying that plane. So I'm going to read it again, because a lot of people talk about vibrate high, right? And you get offended if someone says you vibrate low. But here we're looking at this objectively. There is a scale and there is vibration at different rates. It is what it is. And so the higher the degree of rate of vibration, the higher the plane, and the higher the manifestation of life occupying that plane. So that while a plane is not a place, nor yet a state or a condition. You see, if it were a state or a condition, you're welcome. If it were a state or a condition, we would be looking at something that's possibly not moving. And so we have to add this different dimension in, which is rate of vibration, so that you can understand that a plane is not a static state. It's a vibration. It's a frequency. Okay? And the higher the rate of vibration, the higher the quality of life that occupies that dimension, that plane. Okay. So that while a plane is not a place, nor yet a state or a condition, yet it possesses qualities common to both. Thank you. We shall have more to say regarding the subject of vibration in our next lessons, in which we will consider the Hermetic principle of vibration. But remember, we're on correspondence. But these laws, thank you, Pink, these laws are interchangeable. They're not separate. They work hand in hand. And so sometimes when you're examining one law, you have to stop and look at another one as well. You will kindly remember, however, that the three great planes are not actual divisions of the phenomena of the universe, but merely arbitrary terms used by Hermetists in order to aid in the thought and study of the various degrees and forms of universal activity in life. In other words, we need to teach about it. We need words and phrases. Excuse me. So that's why that's here. The atom of matter, the unit of force, the mind of man, and the being of the archangel are all but degrees in one scale, and all fundamentally the same. The difference between solely a matter of degree and rate of vibration. All are creations of the all and have their existence solely within the infinite mind of the all. So it's saying whether we're talking about an atom, whether we're measuring a unit of force, whether we're talking about the mind of man or an archangel, these are all on the same scale of life, different degrees and rates of vibration. And all of these are creations of the all, capital A-L-L, and have their existence solely within the infinite mind of the all. The Hermetists subdivide each of these three great planes into 7 minor planes, and each of these latter are also subdivided into 7 subplanes, okay? So you have the 3 main planes. Those are subdivided into 7s. And then those 7 planes are also divided into 7. So we can go far with this. Okay, so I'm going to read that again. The Hermetists subdivide each of the 3 planes. Each of the 3 planes has 7 other parts, 7 smaller parts. And each of the 7 smaller parts also have 7 smaller parts. Okay. And it's saying all divisions being more or less arbitrary, shading into one another, and adopted merely for the convenience of scientific study and thought. The great physical plane and its 7 minor planes is that division of the phenomena of the universe, which includes all that relates to physics or material things, forces, and manifestations. It includes all forms of that which we call matter and all forms of that which we call energy or force. But you must remember that the Hermetic philosophy does not recognize matter as a thing in itself or as having a separate existence, even in the mind of the all. Okay. So even matter still has a rate of vibration and is still mental. Even though it feels solid, it's still in the mind of the all, and it's still part of the physical plane. It's not a thing in and of itself, it's saying, and it doesn't have a separate existence from the mind of the all. The teachings are that matter is but a form of energy. Matter is anything solid, anything that exists on this plane is a form of energy. That is, energy at a low rate of vibration of a certain kind. So matter is a low vibration of a certain kind. And accordingly, the Hermetists classify matter under the head of energy and give to it 3 of the 7 minor planes of the great physical plane. The 7 minor physical planes are the plane of matter, A, the plane of matter, B, the plane of matter, C, the plane of ethereal substance, the plane of energy, A, B, and C. All right, so they're breaking down the physical plane into the 7 subparts. The plane of matter, A, comprises the forms of matter in its form of solids, liquids, and gases, as generally recognized by textbooks on physics. The plane matter B comprises certain higher and more subtle forms of matter, of existence of which modern science is now recognizing, the phenomena of radiant matter in its phases of radium, etc., belonging to the lower subdivision of this minor plane. And then the plane of matter C comprises forms of the most subtle and tenuous matter, the existence of which is not suspected by ordinary scientists. The plane of ethereal substance, thank you, comprises that which science speaks of as the ether, a substance of extreme tenuity and elasticity pervading all universal space and acting as a medium for the transmission of waves of energy, such as light, heat, electricity, and such. Okay, so we're still breaking down the physical plane, but let's look at this one really quick. So we have the plane of matter, solid, liquids, and gases. And then we have the plane that, let's see, has to do with radiant matter, radium, and such smaller molecules. And then you have plane of matter C, which science is still slow to acknowledge, but we call that the ether. And it pervades everything in the universe. And it's what transmits energy, okay? And it moves throughout everything that is matter, the ether, okay? And so it transmits energy such as light, heat, and electricity. The ethereal substance forms a connecting link between matter and energy and partakes in the nature of each. The Hermetic teachings, however, instruct that this plane, the ethereal plane, has 7 subdivisions, and that in fact there are 7 ethers instead of but 1. We get more and more to study here, right? So next, this is just an introduction. You could take this into your personal study. Next, above the plane of ethereal substance comes the plane of energy. So remember, you have the physical plane, and in the physical plane, you have the physical plane of matter A, solids, liquids, and gases, the plane of matter B, which is radiant energy, and the plane C, which is ethereal substances. And now we're moving on to the plane of ethereal substance. So when you start thinking life just is what you see, you begin to see right here that life has such depth, such unknowable planes, that how can you think that it just is what it is? It's not anything that we think it is. It's more, so much more, right? Yeah. And you think, okay, we got 3 main planes, but that's just the tip of the iceberg, because now we got each one of them broken down into subcategories, 7 of them, and then each of those has 7 categories. We could study for a long time. So when you know that phrase that says, a man that thinks he knows something knows nothing at all. The moment you think that you know something, right? You got to realize that you know nothing at all. You could know the 3 great planes, and then there's 21 more. You know, so I think it's important for us not to thrive on what the ego feels it knows, not to thrive on knowledge, right? But I think it's important to realize that we are having experiences. What's important is the experiences. What's important is that we are evolving. What's important is our rate of vibration and quality of life is improving, right? So it says, the Hermetic teachings, however, instruct, oh, I did that already. So next, above the plane of ethereal substance comes the plane of energy A, which comprises the ordinary forms of energy known to science, and its 7 subplanes: heat, light, magnetism, electricity, attraction, including gravitation, cohesion, and chemical affinity, and several other forms of energy indicated by scientific experiments, but not yet named or classified. Okay, so we have the plane of energy, and the plane of energy is where we find heat, light, magnetism, electricity, and such. Let's see what y'all saying. Does it seem color in your summertime and hot, colder in your summertime and hot. Oh, Erica, that's where that phrase came from. Came from Erica Badu's song. Yes, yes, yes. So many levels. So where do we get off walking around like we know everything? Oh, I know that. I know the man who thinks he knows something knows nothing at all. It's not even important that we thrive off of what we know. What's important is that we get to experience these planes that we're talking about. What's important is we get to know ourselves. What's important is that we become more and more of our God self. That's what's important. That's what I think. What y'all think? Or is it important for people to see you as knowledgeable or see you as something or whatever, some label, some category, whatever you can come up with? Because what we know is like a speck of sand on a beach. Hey, Spence. It's important to elevate. It's important to experience. It's important to grow, not sit around and hoard knowledge and talk about knowledge and have power because we have knowledge, right? Remember, we read in the Principle of Mentalism that matter, energy, and power are subordinate to self-mastery. So we should seek after self-mastery. That's what I get from that. Because if it's subordinate, matter, energy, and mind come under the authority of self-mastery, then aspiring for more knowledge, more power, more energy, that just ain't it. Okay. So we have the plane of energy A. We said that that's heat, light, magnetism, electricity, and such, and several other forms of energy indicated by scientific experiments. Then there's the plane of energy B, which comprises of the subplanes of higher forms of energy not yet discovered by science, but which have been called nature's final forces, and which are called into operation and manifestations of certain forms of mental phenomena. And by such phenomena becomes possible. So we have what they're terming nature's finer forces, and they haven't gone into what that is, but it has not yet been acknowledged by science. Okay, why are we reading all of this? Because this lesson really is about mental transmutation. And if you want to participate in alchemy according to Hermetic principles, these are the things we need to become well versed in. If you want mental mastery through mental transmutation, through the use of the principles and laws that run this physical plane, the mental plane, and the spiritual plane, you got to know what they are. So you could walk around all day saying everything is energy, everything is energy. What does that mean? How do you apply it? How do you practice that? How do you move into self-mastery according to it? How do you expand with it? You don't know if you just go, yeah, I know everything is energy. Yeah. Now what? We must deepen. Yes or no? Now let's continue. So we have plane of energy A, plane of energy B. Now let's look at plane of energy C. And it really causes you to start thinking, like some of these conversations and debates that people have. Some of these conversations and debates that people have, it's not even skimming the surface, and it's not helping you live at a higher rate of vibration or possess a higher plane. What are we doing? Is it even worth talking and debating about, agreeing to disagree, drawing lines in the sand over something that's not even the surface? It's like the surface of the surface of the surface. Like, what? Why? Why? Okay. It's a sword fight over nothing. Over nothing. I'd rather spend time deep diving into some of this and learning together rather than going back and forth about whatever people talk about these days. I don't know. Right, sword fighting with the egos and nobody knows nothing. Okay, The plane of energy C comprises of 7 subplanes of energy so highly organized that it bears many of the characteristics of life, but which is not recognized by the minds of men on the ordinary plane of development, being available for use on beings of the spiritual plane alone. Okay, so this plane of energy C, it's not even available on the physical plane. It's available to beings on the spiritual plane. So there's a whole plane of energy that's not even accessible to a certain vibration. And y'all worrying about who a real stud and who's a real aggressive femme and who's a real woman and who's a real man. And there's a whole plane you can't even access because you stay right there. Who cheats? Who talks to their exes? Who doesn't? I don't know. I'd rather be sitting down, diving deep into some planes so I can become more masterful at living. I'm just talking. Okay. So it says, being available, this plane of energy C, right? Who cares? The collective mind cares. And because they care so much, they get distracted by that. And instead of pursuing deeper things that can add to advancement and expansion, not only of themselves, but of the collective, they will sit there and do that. And I get it because I used to do it too. And at some point, we need to ascend. We do. And I'm not saying those things don't need to be talked about. They do. I'm talking about the debate portion and the offense and the ego things. That's what I'm talking about. Hey, AP, how you doing? I'm not saying the subjects are not important. I'm saying the debate is not. We can explore together without getting offended, can't we? Well, if the ego is so sensitive that it can't barely handle a different idea, then no, we can't. But we are expanding beyond that, right? Yes. Such energy is unthinkable. I'm doing well. Such energy on plane of energy C is unthinkable to ordinary man. I hope they tell us who the ordinary man is, because I really would love to understand more. This plane is unthinkable to ordinary man. There's some stuff that's unthinkable to the ordinary person. You know that, right? And they will fight you if you tell them something of the unthinkable nature, because in their realm, it's unthinkable. So to present something unthinkable, they're going to get mad and upset. How dare you? It's the realm of the ego. It doesn't let you ascend. It doesn't let you expand. And when you do expand, it's only expansion in the realm of the ego, right? And we're not saying that the realm of the ego is bad. I didn't hear them say that. But I did hear when it said that this energy plane is unthinkable to the ordinary man and may be considered almost as divine power. The beings employing the same are as gods, little gods, compared even to the highest human type known to us. All right, so that energy plane, we can't even access that when we're in a certain vibration. So, yeah, I could say more, but I'm going to keep reading. The great mental plane, now we move to the mental plane. So we did the physical planes, we did the energy planes, now we're on the mental planes. The great mental plane comprises those forms of living things known to us in ordinary life, as well as other forms not so well known, except to occultists. The classification of the 7 minor mental planes is more or less satisfactory and arbitrary, unless it's accompanied by elaborate explanations which are foreign to the purpose of this particular work, but we may as well mention them. They are. In other words, it's something to talk about, but you need elaborate explanation, and that's not what we're here for, but let's mention it anyway. The plane of the mineral mind, the plane of the elemental mind, the plane of the plant mind, elemental mind B, animal mind, elemental mind C, plane of human mind. The plane of the mineral mind comprises the states or conditions of the units or entities or groups and combinations of the same which animate the forms known to us as minerals, chemicals, etc. So we're not talking about a mind associated with the brain. We're talking about consciousness. And it's saying what we know of as minerals and chemicals has a consciousness. There's a mind. Thank you. These entities must not be confounded with molecules, atoms, and corpuscles themselves, the latter being merely the material bodies or forms of these entities, just as man's body is but his material form, not himself. So when we look at the minerals, it's important not to go to the atomic level, because what we're talking about is consciousness. It's a mind, the mineral mind. Chemicals and minerals have a consciousness. These entities may be called souls in one sense, and are living beings of a low degree of development, life and mind. Just a little more than the units of living energy which comprise the higher subdivisions of the highest physical plane. The average mind does not generally attribute the possession of mind, soul, or life to the mineral kingdom, but all occultists recognize this existence of the same, and modern science is rapidly moving forward to the point of view of the Hermetic in this respect. Did y'all hear that? The average mind does not generally attribute the possession of mind, soul, or life to the mineral kingdom. The average person is just like, it's not alive, it's nothing, it's a mineral. It's more than that. It's more than the atoms and the molecules. That's just the physical manifestation. There is a mind, or consciousness, if you will. Did y'all get that? The average mind doesn't attribute the possession of a mind, soul, or life to the mineral kingdom. And I think now, just with reading that, you have an opportunity to come above the average mind just in that. Because you might not have been thinking about it, the Kybalion. You might not have been thinking that a mineral or chemical has a consciousness, because the average mind doesn't, it said. But now, I'm not telling you you have to receive that, because you might still be like, no, it doesn't. That's fine. But just by reading this, I've extended an opportunity to you to rise above the average mind in this area. So now when you walk around life, you have a sort of reverence for what you come across when you come across the mineral kingdom, the chemical kingdom. When we think about minerals, that consciousness is needed in our bodies for the system to run well. And I think we should give thanks when we come upon them. Okay. The average mind does not generally attribute the possession of mind, soul, or life to the mineral kingdom, but all occultists recognize the existence of the same, and modern science is rapidly moving forward to the point of view of the Hermetic in this respect. The molecules, atoms, and corpuscles have their loves and hates, likes and dislikes, attractions and repulsions, affinities and non-affinities, etc. And some of the more daring of the modern scientific minds have expressed the opinion that the desire, will, emotions, and feelings of the atoms differ only in degree from those of men. So these words cause us to think that atoms and molecules have a mind like we do. Our mind associated with a brain? No. A consciousness? Yes. With affinity. You know, energy has affinity, right? You could see that in water. For example, you take a glass of water, you mix salt in it. Salt is water soluble. So those atoms in salt, the sodium, and in water, the H2O, have some type of affinity, which causes them to come together and form bonds. So in that way, atoms and molecules have an affinity. But if you take a cup of water and you pour a fat in it or oil, the oil and the water, they don't have an affinity for one another. So they remain separate. This is what it's saying. Atoms and molecules have likes and dislikes, affinities and non-affinities, attractions and repulsions on the level of the electrons. It is said when the outer valence of the electron is odd, it will have an affinity for another molecule or atom that has a complete valence or extra electrons on the outer layer. We're talking about energy right here. We're talking about energy and consciousness. Okay, so let's continue. What I think is important to read is that it said, some of the more daring of modern scientific minds have expressed the opinion that the desire, will, emotions, feelings, and such of atoms differ only in degree from those of men. In other words, when you're having your affinities, your attractions, your repulsions, there's something similar going on inside of you, except that you have a mind, so the degree is different, but it's a similar operation. There's some people you mix well with and some people you don't. Some people you mesh with and blend with, and some people you stay on the outside of their awareness, or some groups and such. Similar dynamic, different degree. We have no time or space to argue this matter here. It says we're not arguing. All occultists know it to be a fact, and others are referred to some of the more recent scientific works for outside corroboration. Hey, B-side. There are the usual 7 subdivisions to this plane. Hey, Sade, how you doing? The plane of the elemental mind, A. So we just left the mineral mind. Now we're on the plane of the elemental mind. This is on the energy plane. Okay. The plane of the elemental mind, A, comprises the state or condition and degree of mental and vital development of a class of entities unknown to the average man, but recognized by the occultists. So here we are again, this contrast starting to happen. The average man and the occultist. We could substitute you in for the occultist now, because you have an opportunity to come out of the average mind concerning this, right? It's evolution listening to this and choosing whether or not you want to run with that or not. That's part of your evolutionary process right now. So it says that this class of entities are unknown to the average man. They are invisible to the ordinary senses of man, but nevertheless exist and play their part in the drama of the universe. So again, you think you know something, but you don't know anything. There's so much more than meets the eye. There's so much more than meets the nose. There's so much more than meets the ear. There's so much more than meets your senses. So while people are sitting around prioritizing knowledge that they can see and read. There's stuff going on that we don't even have access to, and we don't even know they exist. So at least now we get to know it exists, and that gives us a step in a different direction away from the average mind. The average mind, I'm going to say this, and somebody might get mad, but I got to say it anyway because it came. The average mind wants to say, praise the Lord, just trust God. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying that it's average. This reading just said there's so much beyond that. But if you want to stay there, you can. Nobody's mad about that. But if you want to go beyond that, right, then you must at least know that more exists in some kind of way. It says these entities are invisible to the ordinary senses of man. So that tells me that you have to have some kind of practice that helps you sense, see, feel beyond your senses. Did y'all get that? If these entities are invisible to the ordinary senses of man, you're going to have to apply and develop some other faculties. This is why when I ask people what love is, and they start telling me love is action, love is an emotion, love is, I go, So what if you take the emotion away? And what if you take the action away? Does love disappear? But see, there's a realm that lies beyond the senses that people who don't have a practice, they can't access it. So they have to keep talking about love like this. And so when I start saying something like love is not action, they be like, what? I'm blocking her because love is action. What are you saying? It's beyond the senses. And so you got to decide to look beyond, or at least want beyond. It's 404 in the UK. Wow. So let's continue. There are planes and subplanes that you can't even know with the average mind. Why you want to sit in the average mind then? You don't want to become masterful? Why do you prioritize and protect the average mind? Why do you get offended when someone doesn't like your average mind? I'm reading the Kybalion. You want to be average and you want to defend that? Ashe. Let's continue. Their degree of intelligence is between that of the mineral and chemical entities on the one hand, and the entities of the plant kingdom on the other hand. There are 7 subdivisions on this plane too. Thank you. Hey, Tomboy. Do you see the importance of evolution? Do you see it? Let's see what y'all see. Do you see it? There's so much that lies beyond these senses. Sometimes I tell people, I say, you got to rise above your ego. And you know what somebody might say? Well, what about when? If you want to stay there, you can. Okay, so the plane of the plant mind, in its 7 subdivisions, comprises the states or conditions of the entities comprising the kingdoms of the plant world, the vital and mental phenomena of which is fairly well understood by the average intelligent person. So we see a distinction here between the average mind and the average intelligent person. The average intelligent person can perceive things on the plane of the plant mind. Many new and interesting scientific works regarding the mind and life of plants have been published during the last decade. Plants have life, mind, and souls, as well as have the animals, man, and Superman. Plants have consciousness. If you know that, are you just going to haphazardly walk through a hiking trail and yank a leaf off, yank a branch because you feel like yanking it, take a rock? You're going to still do that? Or are you going to operate in more reverence and ask, may I have this? There's even a practice where if you want to ask for something, right, you give. And ask politely, right? And we're not going to turn this into the plants have a dark soul and they get mad. And don't start doing that. We're just saying that plants have consciousness, not a human brain. The human brain thinks everything can get mad, get upset, whip up on you, whatever. Yeah, levels upon levels. Absolutely. Yes. Next, we're going to the plane of the elemental mind. So you got to be careful here because we're talking about something beyond the human mind. So the human mind thinks that a plant is going to trap you, right? Have y'all read The Secret Lives of Trees? It's a beautiful read. Let's continue. The plane of the elemental mind B, in its 7 subcategories, comprises the states and conditions of a higher form of elemental or unseen entities playing their part in the general work of the universe, the mind and life, of which form a part of the scale between the plant mind and the plane of the animal mind. These entities are partaking of the nature of both. The plane of the animal mind, I love this one, and its 7 subdivisions, comprises the states and conditions of the entities, beings, magnolia tree, yes, that's a vibe. I'm from New Orleans, and we have a lot of magnolias. They have a story to tell, an energetic story, consciousness, right? Okay. The plane of the animal mind in its 7 subdivisions comprises the states and conditions of the entities, beings, or souls animating the animal forms of life familiar to us all. And the human mind is creative, so that's not bad. It's not necessary to go into details regarding this kingdom or plane of life, for the animal world is familiar to us as our own. Okay, so animals have a consciousness also. The plane of elemental mind C, in its 7 subdivisions, comprises those entities or beings invisible, as are all such elemental forms, which partake in the nature of both animal and human life in a degree and certain combinations. The highest forms are semi-human in intelligence. The plane of the human mind, in its 7 subdivisions, comprises those manifestations of life and mentality which are common to man in his various grades, degrees, and divisions. In this connection, we wish to point out the fact that the average man of today occupies but the 4th subdivision of the plane of the human mind, and only the most intelligent have crossed the borders of the 5th subdivision. So there's 7 subdivisions. And it says the average mind, or the average man today, occupies the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th subdivision of the human mind. A really intelligent person crosses over to the 5th subdivision. It has taken the race millions of years to reach this stage, and it will take many more years for the race to move on to the 6th and 7th subdivisions and beyond. But remember, there have been races before us which have passed through these degrees and on to higher planes. Our own race is 5th, with stragglers from the 4th, which has set foot upon the path. And then there are a few advanced souls of our own race who have outstripped the masses and who have passed on to the 6th and 7th subdivision, and some few being even further on. The man of the 6th subdivision will be the superman. He of the 7th will be the overman. So again, the plane of the human mind has 7 subdivisions. You could hang around on plane number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. You can aspire into number 5. And if you really are one of those exceptional beings, then you can be on 6 and 7. Why you want to stay here on the realm of the ego? Can you tell me why that's important? Like, really think about it. If the realm of the ego keeps you in monomaya thinking on level 1, 2, 3, barely 4, when a really intelligent person can be on 5, Superman on 6, and Overman on 7, why do you want to stay in the realm of the ego? What's there but looping, distraction, and illusion? I'm asking a real question. When you don't know there's more, ouch, right? When you don't know there's more, then you flit and flat around on these planes of ego, creating suffering. We call them samskaras, the patterns, the vrittis, the mental modifications. We hang out on manamaya. You have a whole wisdom body, a whole bliss body. You have subplanes of the human mind that are beyond the average mind and the senses, and we're going to play around with the ego. Not I. Me either. I'd rather strip it and let it go. Day by day. These attachments that you have, that we have, you know which ones I'm talking about, because those are the ones that eat at you every day. Those are the ones that you've been called to transcend, but you keep making reasons why you need to stay there a little longer. You keep dipping back into past timelines. You keep playing around in thought cycles that you said you were leaving behind. You keep doing that. But it's time for you to stop. And somebody might be like, who is she to tell me it's time to stop? She need to overleave me. I'm going to transcend because I want to. It's not even about nobody else. When I'm by myself, I want to. I feel the calling. I must. We must. My nickname is Nani, pronounced not I. Not I for that reason. Yeah. Yeah. In our consideration of the 7 minor mental planes, we have merely referred to the 3 elementary planes in the general way. We do not wish to go into this subject in detail with this work, for it does not belong to this part of the general philosophy and teachings, but we may say this much in order to give you a little clearer idea of the relations of these planes more to the more familiar ones. These are elementary. These are elementary. What that means is this is the foundation. You need to know that this is here. Here's an analogy. It says, But we may say this much in order to give you a little clearer idea of the relations of these planes to the more familiar ones. The elementary planes bear the same relation to the planes of mineral, plant, animal, and human mentality and life that the black keys on the piano do to the white keys. The white keys are sufficient to produce music, but there are several scales, melodies, and harmonies in which the black keys play their part and in which their presence is necessary. Y'all ever tried to play the piano? I have. My battery is low, so I'm gonna have to see what I can do. Y'all ever tried to play the piano? So you can play the key of C, right? Bam. You could do that. It's real simple. It's real basic. But when you add those black keys, ooh, a sound, a vibration that's different than just that C chord, right? I think there's 8 octaves. Those black keys add richness, variation, differentiation. You can do so much with them. They add, that's why jazz sounds so good on the piano. If you try to play music with just the white keys, it's going to feel regular. But jazz adds all those black keys. And it's saying that you got the regular planes, but then you have these other ones that add the flavor, right? So why are you playing around on, what is it? C, E, C, D, E, F, G, C, E, G. You just want to keep playing C, E, G. I wish I had a piano so I could show you how it sounds. Okay. They are also necessary as connecting links of soul condition, entity states, between several other planes, certain forms of development being attained therein. This last fact given to the reader who can read between the lines a new light upon the process of evolution and a new key to the secret door of the stages, the leaps of life between kingdom and kingdom. The great kingdom of the elementals are fully recognized by all occultists, and the esoteric writings are full of mention of them. And so I'm going to stop right here because my battery is low and it's getting late. So the average mind is talking about the law of attraction, right? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Not because, thank you, not because the law is finicky, but because often we don't have enough information. So I just told you about at least 21 subplanes. And those subplanes have 7 subplanes. And we are only focusing on the law of attraction because we want to manifest a house, because we want to manifest money, because we want to manifest a future. But listen, there's more involved, and you wonder why. I believe I've been focusing, I've been doing my affirmations, and still it's not here. There are all these subplanes and laws and principles to know and become masterful at. So you could stop there, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Or you can become even more masterful. That's what I hear. And so if you listen close enough, yes, there's more. If you listen close enough, you can tell what layer of life people live on if you listen close enough. Because they can use these words like planes, dimensions, energy, vibration, frequency. Oh yes, I read the Kybalion. They can do all of that. But watch how they live. Watch how they apply. Watch how they interpret. That's going to tell you more about where a person really dwells, because we have in psychology what's called a self-preserving bias. The self-preserving bias doesn't let you look at where you are in reality. You have a need to think you're higher than you really are, right? And so how we figure out where we're at, because we do need to locate ourselves in vibration so we can evolve. We need to locate ourselves, but that self-preserving bias doesn't let it happen. So what happens is we get in relationships and we get around people who say things that cause these disturbances inside so you can see. But if you're in denial, you'll say, I acted out of character. No, that's your character. That's just not the one you like displayed, but that's in your character for sure. They didn't cause you to get out of sorts. That's really in you. And if you can recognize that, then you can do something about it. But as long as you're in denial, the only one who's being fooled is you. There is no shame in saying, this is the level I'm on right now, but I aspire for higher, and that's why I practice. That's a spiritual person in a spiritual practice. The one in the ego, flaunting the knowledge and wanting people to see them a certain way and getting upset about it, that's the person who's on a particular level, and you know it. There's a scripture that says, and you will know them by the fruit they bear. And you will know them. So don't be saying, oh, I thought they were spiritual, because you didn't take time to listen. Hey, Tricon. I admit I be in low places a lot. I try to be everywhere. Yeah. You got to locate yourself. And there's no shame in it. We're all on the same scale of life to different degrees. And only the ego makes the distinction of better, worse, good, bad, evil, good. The realm of the ego is the realm of that judgment. And when you prioritize the realm of the ego over some of these other planes, then you get stuck defending it. And it's self-sabotage. Let me see if I have. It's self-sabotage. And we got to stop it. You got to stop it. It's exhausting. It is. I was trying to see if I have a charger. But I need to go because I don't even know where my charger is now. I wish I could see that emoji key, but I don't have my glasses on. I don't know what it's doing. Okay, y'all. Well, I'm going to go before the phone cuts off. Thank y'all so much for hanging out. I appreciate you. If you need coaching, you can find me on my website at veronicamarie.com. I'm going to put this teaching on my YouTube. Y'all go to if you feel led, don't just go over there doing it because you want to support. I don't want your support. If you feel led to subscribe to my YouTube channel, please do. Right? I don't want your support. I want to serve you. If it serves you, if it benefits you, then do that. Okay? You're over there, Ashe. You learn better. Yes, yes. We learn together. We grow together. All right. Well, y'all have a beautiful creation in your dreamscape, and we will talk soon.